Good morning, guys. You know what time it is. It's Monday, so there are new leaks, and there is a big leak. There's a really insane card coming. Might be the strongest card ever being printed, and this isn't even an exclamation, no, an exaggeration. Yes, this is the word, an exaggeration. This isn't even exaggerated. You can also see there is the Master Duel Forbidden Limited List update, which we will take a look at in another video. Obviously, also dropped today, which means that we also now know when the next pack will hit the shop, which is when the Master Duel Forbidden Limited List will be updated. But what card is coming? What card am I talking about? For those of you not being blind, you know it already, you have seen it already, but yes, we are actually getting the S&P Little Knight, a card that comes from Age of Overlord and is to be considered by many players one of the best cards to ever be printed, and it seemed very insane when we first saw it, and then it proved to be very insane, and every deck that can run it does run it. This is in everyone's extra deck basically, because it's just so strong. Only decks that are not running this card, for example, are branded because they are locking themselves out of the extra deck, except fusioning summoning. So this is why branded can't really play the SP Little Knight. But other than that, if your deck can just like summon from the extra deck, then you can play the Little Knight, and you will. For some decks, this will be even stronger than for other decks, but let's first understand what this means here. Why is this card even good, right? You need 2 effect monsters. If this card is a linked summoned using a fusion, a synchro X is your link monster, so an extra deck monster basically as material, you can target 1 card on the field or in either graveyard, so yours or the opponent's. So it targets first, right? Banish it. Also, your monsters cannot attack directly this turn. And the second effect, when your opponent activates a card or effect. Quick effect, you can target 2 face-up monsters on the field, including a monster you control. Does not have to be the Little Knight, but can be the Little Knight. Can also be 2 of your monsters, but can't be 2 of your opponent's monsters. It needs to be 1 your controls. Banish both until the end phase, which then they will come back. You can only use each effect of SP Little Knight once per turn, so you can use both in the turn you are summoning this thing. So this is insane, right? You should already be able to see where this is really strong, but just in comparison, a good comparison for this card, for a card that has been very popular, is the Nightmare Unicorn, because SP Little Knight basically functions in the same manner, but is way worse. So Nightmare Unicorn, let's quickly compare these. We have 2+ monsters, so this is firstly a Link 3 monster. The fact that this is a warrior monster and this is a fiend doesn't really matter. Both of them are dark, so good types, but also types to be targeted by Vistials. So it doesn't really matter, but you need 2+ monsters with different names for this one, which different names. There is an additional clause where here you need effect monsters, which means you can't make it with an Nibiru token, but you can, in theory, use 2 monsters with the same name. If this card is link summoned, you can discard 1 card, then target 1 card on the field, shuffle it into the deck. Then if this card was co-linked when this effect was activated, you can draw 1 card, which is rarely the case because normally you need all your stuff to even make this. So both of them are removing a card from the field. This can also remove from the graveyard. This banishes instead of shuffling back into the deck, which most of the time is better. And this does not need, and this is, I guess, for the first part, the most important one, this does not need a discard and is made with only 2 monsters versus this needing to be made with 3. Obviously, and you are right in pointing this out, we need an extra deck monster to get the first effect of the Little Knight. So this means if you do not have a Link 1 monster, like for example Linguribo, so Linguribo, very popular at the moment, obviously, oh no, not Linguribo, I mean Linkuribo. Linkuribo very popular at the moment in all the fire decks, or an Anima, for example, or any other Link 1 monster. So these are just a few prominent ones. You could also have, I don't know, Scareclaw little guy here, the Scareclaw Lightheart. This also counts, obviously. If you have cards like these in your deck, then the Little Knight is even better, because then you don't need an extra deck monster with 2 link rating to make the Little Knight. So sometimes you will, for example, just need to make her with a dark or a heater, which is also fine if you can make a dark and then steal one of your opponent's dark monsters. Then you have also made the Little Knight with 2 monsters because you have stolen one from your opponent. But This thing is just more expensive. Yes, it can draw one card if it's co-linked, as already said, but most of the time it's not really the case. And then you also have the additional effect of the SP Little Knight that it can banish. And this can happen every time, right? This, when your opponent activates a card or a quick effect, you can target 2 facer monsters, banish, then the SP Little Knight will come back or will stay on the field, depending on whether you have banished her or not. And then you can use that again, which is obviously really insane because this is also targeting protection. There are so many use cases to talk about when it comes to the Little Knight that I can't even talk about anything. But just for example, we have recently had the addition of the remaining Rescue Ace cards, right? So what you can do now with the Little Knight, and as I already said, Little Knight makes so many decks better, but what you can do is you can first make a Little Knight on the field, and then you can get your Turbulence to the field. And then, for example, you are safe against being impermed. Your opponent could obviously still imperm you just before the effect activation, but then you can just resummon the Turbulence with your Promethean Princess and then activate it. But for example, if you have your Little Knight and you have your Turbulence, if your opponent goes Infinite Impermanence, then you just go SP Little Knight effect because your opponent activated the card or effect, quick effect, and then you banish Turbulence and the Little Knight until the end phase. You set 4 with the Turbulence, and then in the end phase you get back your Turbulence and your Little Knight. Another really insane interaction that is, you can use if it works, if you can do it, is that, for example, if you banish your, let's say, your own Baron de Fleur with your Little Knight, right? So you banish an opponent's monster, let's say, and your Little Knight. And let's say your Baron de Fleur has already activated its effect to negate something. Then, if the Baron comes back to the field at the end of the turn because of the Little Knight's effect, because you have banished it, then the negation effect will once again be live, which is totally insane, like totally insane. But obviously you will most likely use this as an interruption. So for example, your opponent goes, I don't know, let's take the following example, right? And this can be a nice situation in which you can, for example, use the Little Knight to influence the game state. Let's say you have a Little Knight on your field and your opponent goes Tour Guide from the Underworld normal summon and wants to special summon. Let's say he's playing Unchained and he wants to special summon the Fiendish Rhino Warrior to go link to into an Unchained Soul Lord of Yama. And let's say he has no more extenders left, right? So he needs this normal summon to go through. And then this basically works, or the SP Little Knight in this case basically works like an Infinite Impermanence in the sense that you can chain your Little Knight to the activation of the Tour Guide and then just banish the Tour Guide and the Little Knight. And then he will only have the Fiendish Rhino Warrior on the field, which he obviously can't go into a link to Lord Yama with, which then you have effectively stopped his place on his turn via your SP Little Knight. And then obviously you also get this thing back on your end turn, so you can use it on your turn for any targeting protection, because then she's back on the field, your opponent might have set an Infinite Impermanence, and then you can just go, oh, Infinite Impermanence, oh, I banish the monster you targeted and your monster, and can use it for that, for example. Sometimes there will be a case in which you want, because one of the most effective ways in getting rid of the SP Little Knight, just quick info for you, is to battle over her, right? Because it has 1/6 attack, so it is very common that people just attack over her, so then she leaves the field and she does not come back. So sometimes you will have this fact in mind that your opponent could just battle over the SP Little Knight, which, if that's the case, what you then sometimes want to do is, if your opponent activates anything, you want to remove her from the field early so you can keep her, right? So let's say your opponent, I don't know, summons Kastira Unicorn and then goes Kastira Theosis on the Unicorn. Then you might think about, okay, I should maybe get the SP Little Knight off the field now so that it can't be destroyed by battle because I want to keep it, for example, right? Then you could go activate the Little Knight and then banish her, and in this case the Unicorn, and you have your Little Knight safe from being attacked over. But obviously you want to, in an optimal world, use her as an interruption and not use her in that way, right? So you will find this in every deck. You will only need this once. The Rescue Ace deck will actually need this twice, and you can see OCG also had it limited to 2, which doesn't really matter because basically every deck is only running this at 1. And obviously decks that are really will have a boost from this are actually Unchained and Labyrinth Unchained, which is why, because Unchained is playing the Soul of Rage, which is also played by Labyrinth. If you are not aware, oh yeah, this is not the one I wanted to click. If you're not aware of the Soul of Rage, this is basically an IP Masquerena link summon with your opponent's monster on your opponent's turn. So during your opponent's main phase, you can target one face-up special summon monster your opponent controls. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one dark link monster except Unchained Soul of Rage by only using that opponent's monster and discard you control as material. So when your opponent special summons something, you can go Unchained Soul of Rage, and normally before you would go into a Nightmare Unicorn and you would need another card to be discarded, but now you can just go into the, where is she? Have I closed her? Yeah, now you can just go into the SP Little Knight, of course. Don't need the discard. You remove, you banish something from your opponent's field or graveyard, and then you can even use the second interruption effect. So you are gaining a way better play in the Labyrinth Unchained version and the Unchained version, just due to the fact that this card is so much better than is Nightmare Unicorn. Do you just now want to decraft your Unicorn, you might say? I would not say so, because in some instances you want to play both SP Little Knight and the Nightmare Unicorn. But yeah, the Little Knight is coming to us, and this is one of the strongest cards to ever be printed, and this is actually true. This is an insane card, but this is also an insanely cool card. So don't you worry, because sometimes guys are like, oh no, SP Little Knight, oh, it's so power crap, but don't you worry, this is just a very, this is a feel good card. This feels good. This makes the game more complex in a good way. So having the SP Little Knight in the game actually is a very cool thing. If everyone can use her. This was the thing in the beginning in the TCG. It still is, right? Because this card, I have her myself, but I also paid 100 euro for this. So this cost 100 euro / dollar. I think in dollar it's even more. It's 130 or something. And this is still a 90 euro card because it has not been reprinted at this current point in time. But yeah, we will be able to use it because it's just an ultra rare, like any else ultra rare, any other ultra rare. Also, would be very cool to have her in the Royal Finish, because this is a card that you will use for years and years to come. This is just an insane staple card that you will see in every person's extra deck. So what you always have to keep in mind now come the future is that once your opponent has an extra deck monster and an additional monster on the field, always keep the Little Knight in the back of your mind. This can then theoretically come. But keep also in mind, we have not talked about this part, if you use the first effect, you cannot attack directly this turn. So this balances the Little Knight out a bit. So if you want to use her first effect, then be aware of the fact that you won't be able to kill your opponent on this turn, but that's okay. You just want to gain as much as an advantage as you can, and then just go from there with the second effect of the Little Knight. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think of this release here. I'm super happy that this card is coming, and this card is just so cool. Really is a good addition to the game in my opinion. I'm so happy that they will bring this in the May pack, which, as I already said, we will check out the Forbidden and Limited list in another video that you will see here on the channel, where we will also take a look at when the next pack will come. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Little Knight. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, hitting the thumbs up and the notification bell, and we will see each other in the next one.